Let's talk about the psychology of being a business owner.
So this is my daughter, Finley. We have 5 kids, right? And it's so interesting when I watch her grow up. She's 8 years old. She was born in Costa Rica. She's sweet as a pea. And she doesn't know this quite yet, but being a business owner is difficult. I'm sure that you've figured that out already, which is why you're watching videos like this. But what I think a lot of people don't understand is that the real reason most people are stuck has nothing to do with systems or their employees or their marketing or their sales or the common things that people would point to. It really has a lot to do with the way that we think. And it's not hooey, wooey things. This is a fact. You know, I've worked with over 1,000 people the last almost 15 years. And in a lot of ways, I've become a professional dot connector. When I look at my daughter, Finley, I'm very cognizant of the fact that 80% of her character is going to be developed by the time she's 8 years old. And, well, you are 8 years old, right? Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? Well, my wife and I try to be as careful as we can in the way that we program her mind. What does she think is true? What does she think is real? What does she think she's worthy of? How big can she dream? The way that we approach language and conversation with our kids is a really big deal. And for a lot of small business owners, that got messed up along the way. There could be some self-limiting things or people in your past that held you back, or maybe even now there's people telling you to get a real job. Or maybe even when things are going really well for you, you sabotage it and you can't figure out why. Well, we're going to talk about that in this video. I'm going to give you solutions on how to fix it and get out of that hole so you can change your life for the rest of your life. So I am a little under the weather today, but we decided to make this video anyway because it's so important for you to see this. We're going to talk about several different things. The first thing I want to start with is self-talk. And did you know that you're having a conversation with yourself 24 hours a day? You know, the thoughts that go into your head dictate the results that you have in your life. And one of my favorite Bible verses is to take captive every thought that exalts itself above the name of the Lord. And whether you're religious or not, or you're a Jesus person like us or not, is beside the point, because this is an absolute truth. You can look at society, you can go to Walmart, you can see people walking around and they have a vibe, they have a thing, they have a presence, almost like a blanket over them. And this can be on the bad side, it can be on the good side. You can see these people everywhere. I see it with business owners all the time. So what does it mean to take captive every thought? Well, to me, it means something really simple. It means we need to start thinking about what we think about. And by the way, thinking is really hard. You know, in small business, it's really easy to get stuck on the hamster wheel, the Groundhog's Day of just doing the same thing over and over and over. And it's a lot of work to think. I mean, isn't it? Have you ever had a day where you work physically so hard that you kind of pass out and fall asleep at night? Have you ever noticed, too, that when you're doing a lot of mental work, the same thing happens? Maybe you didn't physically strain your body, but you were doing really hard, heavy, deep, creative work for hours and hours and hours, and how you get exhausted. Or, for example, did you know that professional chess players burn up to 10,000 calories a day when they're in tournaments? Because thinking is really hard. So what does it mean to think about what you're thinking about? Well, it means to take captive every thought. So the way that I visualize this, that's helped me and a lot of my clients, is thoughts when they come into your head, you need to just gradually become aware that that is happening. For example, you could be driving down the road and you could whisper to yourself inside your own head a negative I am statement, like, I'm an idiot, right? Or let's say that you're supposed to get off at an exit and you miss the exit. And this thought comes into your head that I am an idiot. You see, people that are really, really successful, they have a completely different inner conversation happening in their head than everybody else does. And they're more cognizant about paying attention to the thoughts rolling around in their head. So taking captive of a thought simply means at least think about what you're thinking about. And my formula for this is very simple. Grab the thought and look at it. I am such an idiot. And ask yourself a really simple question. Is that true? Are you actually, legally speaking, you're standing in front of a court of law, are you an idiot? Is that who you are? And even if you're like, well, sometimes I feel like I am, is that who you want to be? Because you need to reject things that are not true. And thoughts are flying around in our head all day long, and most of the ones in our head are not actually true. Things like, I am an idiot, or I knew this was going to happen, or things never work out, or that guy has it out for me, or assuming the worst of other people. These thoughts that are floating in your head, they start doing a bunch of stuff that's very destructive to your business and to your bank account, to your relationships, and to your own relationship with yourself. So I'm going to give you a framework to better understand why you do the things that you do and why I do the things that I do. My friend Myron Golden, he says that people only do anything for one reason, and it's because they feel like it. So as a business consultant and as a business owner myself, and as a father of 5, I understand that my job isn't just to pass the correct information to my clients, not just to pass the correct information to my children. It's to get my children into a state where they feel like being the person that they actually are, right? So it's a combination of reaffirming their identity, but setting them up to feel like being the person that they need to be. The way that it works, to think of it in a simple way, is that you have conscious thoughts that lead to subconscious beliefs, that lead to feelings in your heart, that lead to actions in your hands. And what this looks like is when you're thinking thoughts that are negative all day, like I'm an idiot and all these things, if those thoughts are left unchecked, they grow into really bad trees and they become beliefs. So if you look at your head and imagine the top half of your head is the conscious part of your brain and the bottom half of your head is the subconscious part. The conscious part, thoughts are flying in from everywhere, from media, from marketers, from your family, from your friends, from your high school guidance counselor, from your next door neighbor, thoughts and opinions and things that the world is saying to you, things that you're saying to yourself, things that the devil is saying to you, they're floating around in there. And if you're not thinking about what you're thinking about, what'll happen is all that negative stuff will slowly move into the subconscious belief part of your head. And that's a really bad thing because our mind is like a garden, right? The whole world works on principles, okay? And one principle that you can observe everywhere in business and in life is the principle of sowing and reaping. You got to start thinking about thoughts as actual things, or better yet, think of thoughts as seeds. And so when you have all these thoughts unchecked, because you're not thinking about what you're thinking about, you're planting a lot of negative seeds into the garden of your mind. And what happens is if you say things to yourself like I'm an idiot enough times, it will become a belief. And it's not like a conscious belief where you're going to wake up brushing your teeth one day and be like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. No. But what happens is subconsciously you've programmed yourself to believe that you are an idiot. And you see, the subconscious beliefs that we have control how we feel. They control our motivations. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that you know exactly what to do, but you just don't do it? Have you ever had a piece of information sitting on your desk or in your brain for a long time, but you don't implement it, you don't execute it, you don't get the result for it? Are there areas in your business where you're really not actually confused, but you're still not making any change? If that's true, which I know that it is, this is why. It's because you believe lies. There's things that are not true that you think are true because you haven't kind of pruned the garden of your mind, right? And what happens is we have thoughts that become beliefs that control feelings, and our feelings control the actions. People only do things, like Myron said, for one reason, because they feel like it. People overeat and become obese because they feel like it. Why would someone feel like doing something destructive? Well, it's because they feel like they're not worthy. They feel like they're not enough. They feel like it's not going to work out for them. They feel like every diet they tried before doesn't work, right? They have false beliefs stacked together in their brain. And let me share a couple statistics with you. So the first one comes from the National Science Foundation. And they say that the average person has 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. And of those, 80% are negative and 95% are exactly the same thoughts as the day before. My team pulled this stat. I'm not surprised by it, but I'm also kind of like rattled a little bit because in a way, this is like an easy thing to fix. Like we could change whole generations and whole communities by reprogramming the things that people think are true. If you think everybody's out to get you, then it will feel like that's happening. The reticular activating system in our brain will make us only see the negative things. You can have one person get a flat tire and believe in their heart, nothing ever works out for me. And you can have a different person get a flat tire and say, thank you, Jesus, for saving me from some accident I was going to get into. Some people think that life is happening to them, and other people think that life is happening for them. I was driving around on Judah May Thursday, and my wife was with me, and she told me an interesting story about tennis players. Ashlee said, Josh, do you know what the single common factor among the top elite tennis players in the world is? And I said, no. And she told me what it was their ability to view a negative situation as a positive. And so I'm like, unpack that for me a little bit. She said, if they have a bad serve or they do a bad move or they lose a point or something, they view it as a positive thing. Like they have a feedback loop. Another example of this is with professional golfers. A friend of mine, Brian Bowman, he was a professional golfer for years. And he told me that the number one predictive indicator of the top golfers is this weird statistic called bounce back rate. And it's a stat that they measure on golfers, which means immediately after doing really bad on a hole, the score that they get on the very next hole and how good that is after having done so poorly, that statistic is the number one predictor of who's going to win the whole PGA. And it makes sense if you think about it, right? But for you as a local business owner, how do you measure your bounce back rate? Well, it has to do with managing how you feel. It all comes down to like conscious thoughts and subconscious beliefs, which create feelings. My son Maverick told me a story about how Alexander the Great, from the time he was a baby, was told by his mother that he was a god, that he was invincible. Now, he was just a man, but he believed in his heart that he was something else. And so then you hear all these insane stories of him leading on the front lines and doing impossible feats in war. And the reason why is because the things that he believed to be true manifested the reality that he had around him. And this happens for poor people. It happens for people that kind of have a victim mindset. It happens for successful people. If I'm hanging out with Myron Golden in real life, it's really fascinating because you can't take that guy anywhere without him being the light of the whole room. He walks with this level of certainty that's magnetic. We went to Chipotle last time he was at the studio here in Dallas, and all of the workers like turn their head like, who is that guy? He's like a radio transmitter of energy, and it's because the things that he believes are all based on truth. They're based on positive identity and self-affirmation, right? And that creates this feeling. So it's easy for him to take action and speak life and do all these things, and he has a lot of confidence. Maybe you haven't thought of these things before, and I'm not trying to be too weird, but these things directly link to your bank account, the success you have, the type of talent that you can recruit, employees that stay or leave, all of it. It's all tied together. Another thing I think is really, really important to consider is, why did you start your business in the first place? You see, in my experience, most people that start a local business, they start it to escape something, not to pursue something. It's not always true, but on average, most people were quitting a job, right? Or they're trying to get away from, having to work 9 to 5. They're trying to get away from a boss that they didn't like, someone who was dumber than them but paid more than them. They couldn't take it anymore. And although having a business is, in a lot of ways way better than having a job for someone that doesn't care about you, it can be really problematic for you getting real freedom if you're running away from something instead of running towards something. So you got to think about this. When I do high ticket consulting with business owners, the very first thing I ask people is, what do you want? What do you want exactly? And sometimes we'll spend an hour just talking about that, or 2 or 3 or 4 calls for an hour just getting that clear, because the truth is most people don't know what they want. They've been programmed to escape pain but not pursue pleasure. They've been programmed to run away from the bad but not towards the good. Most people don't know who they are. They don't know whose they are. It's my belief that you were made on purpose for a purpose. You're not a cosmic accident, that you literally have a mission and a mandate and a purpose and a destiny. God's not mad at you. He is for you. He loves you. But most people don't think that. Now, let's say that I'm crazy and that I'm delusional. What effect do you think this type of belief has on my ability to do big things? What effect does this belief have on my ability to rally support from other people? You see, whether you want to call it delusion or not, I call it faith and certainty and trust in God. You see, these types of thoughts and me aiming towards something create this magnetic positive momentum. And a lot of people don't have that. So I guess as a homework assignment to you, start dreaming again about who you are and what your talents and your skills are and what you're aiming at. Your business is not who you are. Your business is what you do. Even better than that, your business is not who you are, it's just what you drive. Your business is a vehicle, and it should be driving you up success mountain, whatever that looks like for you. It could be being debt-free, or buying a second home, or spending more time with your wife, or doing something amazing with your grandchildren. It could be charitable stuff, it can be ministry stuff, it can be anything. You're allowed to pick whatever you want, but the business is just a means to get you there. And people get their identity wrapped up in the business. And so I see this all the time, where a marketing campaign fails, and they feel like emotionally devastated, like they failed. No, you didn't fail. The hook wasn't right. The timing wasn't right. The targeting wasn't right. There's some weird thing that just made it not work. And if you look at it as an investigative reporter trying to figure out the science experiment, it can be fun because as soon as you figure it out, you move closer up Success Mountain towards whatever it is you want. But you're never going to feel like that if you don't know who you are, if you don't know that you're worthy, if you don't know that you're loved, if you don't even know what you're driving towards in the first place. And hopefully you can see how these truths all compound for the good or for the bad for small business owners. So typically, if you ever see an advertisement from WarPlan and we're trying to attract small business owners to our software and the different services that we have, we're going to run ads promoting things that people think that they need. We don't give them what they actually need. We promote what they think that they need. And people typically think they need a new system, a new shiny object. They need, a different software tool, or they need a coach, or they need this hidden marketing formula. And those things are valuable, and we have all of those things. But we lead with that in the advertising so that once they're in our world, we can actually deliver what they really need, which is they need an identity transformation, they need community, they need an up level of belief, they need more consistency, more confidence, more clarity, and they need community. Now, if I went on the internet and I said, sign up for my amazing clarity thing, people wouldn't buy that as much because they don't think that they need it. But I can tell you from 15 years of experience working with over 1,000 people, that is the biggest cheat code you could possibly have, is knowing where you're going and why it's worth it. What do you want so bad your stomach hurts? And to wrap up this video, I want to tell you a story about a couple that adopted a Russian orphan. Back, I don't remember if Ashlee and I were even married. Maybe I was 18 or 20 years old. Maybe we were married. But I remember there's a couple that stood up at the church we went to in Fenton, Michigan, telling a story about an orphan that they adopted. And it took like 2 years for them to finalize this deal. They were in Michigan and they were flying back and forth to Russia. And they had picked out their future son. And they knew him by name and they were excited and all the paperwork. And can you imagine being a kid in a Russian orphanage until you're 8 years old? I showed Finley in the beginning of this video. And by the time a kid is 8, so much stuff is already locked. And it can be reprogrammed. It can be fixed, right? Anything can be managed, but a lot of neuroplasticity is gone and they're kind of locked. They know who they are. They feel secure or they don't, and all these things. So they get this, they get the deal done, they bring the kid back. This family was an affluent family. They had nice things. Really good people. They couldn't have biological kids. And to them, they were insanely excited because now they had an heir. They had a son, right? And so as soon as the paper is notarized and signed, it's signed, sealed, and delivered, it's official, it's legal, it's spiritual, it's done from the parents' perspective. However, one morning, the father is walking down the stairs in their multi-million-dollar house, and he looks into the kitchen, and his new son is eating dog food on all fours out of the dog bowl. And this story really affected me because I've never forgotten it. It's like 20 years ago. And I see a lot of business owners with the same type of mentality. They don't know who they are. And this kid was the heir to a multi-million-dollar estate, to parents who loved him, but his identity hadn't caught up with the reality yet. And so for you, maybe take some time and ask yourself, what are my dreams? What was I made to do, right? I'm going to give you an exercise at the end of this video too to help with that. And where am I going and what's going to make it worth it? Because your business is simply a vehicle to level you up and to change your family tree and to serve the people around you. And maybe your local business is a starter business and maybe you're going to have 5 other ones later. But if you never figure out who you are and whose you are and all these things, you're going to really have a hard time. So one simple exercise you can use to figure out your purpose, for lack of a better term, is a simple Venn diagram. And maybe my editors can make a graphic on the screen for this video, but basically the first circle is going to be your goosebump circle. And so if you're taking notes at home, start sketching out what things put you in flow state or give you goosebumps. There's certain things when you're doing them, you just feel like you're anointed, you're appointed, you are just designed for that thing. And it could be anything. I heard a quote that writers write and singers sing and dancers dance, right? So for people that are destined to do those things, they get goosebumps, they get in flow state when they're doing that thing. For me, it's when I'm talking to someone one-on-one and I'm speaking life into them and I'm seeing them believe again. And, I'm mentoring someone. I feel that, right? So what is that for you? It could be something mechanical, something technical. It could be something intellectual. It could be something kinesthetic with your body. It doesn't matter, but the first circle is what are your flow state goosebump things? The second part of the Venn diagram is what I call insatiable curiosities, or you could call them fascinations. What are you a nerd about? All of us are a nerd about something, right? What is just amazing to you? What's interesting to you? What is fascinating to you? You know, for me, I think all kinds of weird, boring things are amazing. I could study a blade of grass and like the biology of it and the chemistry of it and even the geometry of it and the cell structure. I'm fascinated by design and intelligent designer. And, you know, most people would be like, boring, right? For me, I'm fascinated by details. I'm fascinated by marketing. I'm fascinated by behavioral psychology, which is why I make videos like this. And so for my Venn diagram, I have my goosebump stuff over here, and then I have some insatiable curiosities or fascinations. And then the third part of the Venn diagram is your talent stack. I don't want you to get it twisted, but what skills do you already have that are really good? What are you good at? What have you put the work in on, right? So talent stack doesn't just mean what you're naturally good at, although that's a good place to start. It can just be labeled as skills. What skills do you have? You know, I like talents a little bit better because some of us have built skills around things that aren't our talent, and it's not where we're supposed to be. A lot of people with home service companies are meant to be speakers. They're meant to be authors. They're meant to be podcasters. They're meant to be coaches and consultants, and they're trapped inside this, you know, this business because they're taking care of their family. So as you do this exercise, you want to look at where these three things overlap, and that will get you in the neighborhood of maybe what you could aim at, what you could use your business for. But it's all going to start and come down to you beginning to think about what you think about, asking yourself if it's true, and rejecting the things that are not true. And this takes conscious effort to do it. It's exhausting, but it will change your absolute life forever if you start thinking about what you're thinking about. Remember that your mind is a garden, and you're going to reap fruit one way or the other. And be careful what you let through your eyes and your ears, because they're gates. They're like doorways to a house. That's my encouragement for you. I hope you got value out of this video. And you know, if you get value out of any of the videos we're making, we have a small YouTube channel. We have a team that's working really hard. Jason Will are right here off camera. It means a lot if you subscribe to the video, if you share, if you comment. We're reading it, right? We don't have millions of followers. We have a heart for local small business owners and really any entrepreneur, especially if you have a family. We're here to provide value to you, and hopefully we accomplish that. Take care. We'll see you in the next video.